Right, here we go. Hello everybody, welcome to Using Social Media to the Best Effect. Lovely to see you all, as it were. We'll be kicking off in just another couple of minutes' time. In order to receive the best possible signal, it's probably best that you have your cameras turned off and your audio turned off. I will go through housekeeping and talk about how you can answer questions and so on at the end of the presentation. So don't worry, there will be plenty of opportunities there. All right. I'll just give it about another 30 seconds and then we will start. So welcome everybody to Using Social Media to Best Effect with our speaker, Bev Humphries, today. It's great to have you all here.
Hi, Tim. Oh, hi, Tim, I said, sorry.
That's all right, don't worry. Okay. Okay, let's carry on then. So welcome everybody to Using Social Media to Best Effect. My name's Amanda Whiteford and I'm the chair for the meeting today, and I chair the Southend and Chelmsford group within the Essex and Ipswich CIPD branch. That's quite a mouthful, isn't it? But that's my role, and I'm here today to welcome our speaker, Bev Humphries, who I'm really looking forward to hearing her presentation on social media and how we can use it to best effect. Just before I hand over to Bev, I'd like to go through a few housekeeping issues with you. So if you can keep your microphones on silent, please, that will be good. We will use the chat box, and also you can turn your microphones back on to ask questions at the end of the session. Please ensure that the name that is showing is the name that you booked with. I'll be checking that I've got the right people in the meeting once Bev starts talking. So if it looks as if anybody is there that shouldn't be, you might get kicked out otherwise. So make sure you've got the right name there. The session is going to be recorded and you will receive a link to the recording after the event, and that will be valid for up to 6 weeks, okay? Contact details for our speaker will be in the chat box towards the end of the session. And we will also, after the event, send out a survey, as we'd love to have your feedback and ideas for future events like these, topics that would be really of use and of interest to you. So do please feel free to ping me an email. I'll give out my email. I've got a CIPD one now at the end of the session, and you can contact me on that. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to hand over to our speaker, Bev Humphries, who I'm delighted to bring into the session. So Bev, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you give me just one moment to share my screen with you in just a second. Here. Lovely. So you should now be able to see my presentation on the screen in front of you. Very nice to meet you all this afternoon. As Amanda says, I'm Bev Humphrey, Amanda, not Humphreys, but there you are. I'm actually a literacy and also a digital media consultant. I've been a literacy and digital media consultant for about 11 years now. I've been self-employed for 11 years. And previous to that, I was working in a secondary school as a school librarian and also their learning gateway coordinator. So always been a bit techie. At present, I now run social media accounts for 2 charities, as well as for my own 2 businesses. And I arrange and host online events for various different people. And as it says there, I am definitely a bit of a geek and I'm proud of it. It's kind of like one of those times where you say, yes, I'm a geek. And
Just
my
wondered
name's
if we
Bev,
could go
and
through these slides that you sent to me,
and that's
Kathy.
certainly where I'm coming from. I'm very much a geek, love anything technology wise, and am constantly online. So let's get on to the actual meat of the presentation, if you like. Oh dear, there we go. So when it comes to using social media for promotion, before you even start using any form of social media, you've got to do quite a bit of thinking about which channel is going to be the best for yourself. Some businesses and charities will go for using all forms of social media, and they'll have an Instagram account and a Twitter account and a Facebook account. And that can be absolutely fine. If that's how you want to work it, that's not a problem. But it can also diffuse your message somewhat. So the other things you need to think about, for what purpose are you using social media? Are you using it to advertise a product? Are you looking at contacting people and widening your reach? Or is it just for getting the word out there about a particular promotion? The other thing to be very aware of is, of course, which audience are you looking at? Are you looking at a certain age group? Is the thing that you are looking to promote more suitable for younger people or for older people? Are you looking at people from a certain social background? I mean, it could be anything, but you really need to take account of who your audience is going to be and how you want to promote yourselves to them. And then the last consideration that is so important is looking at the time that you're willing to devote to this. Because if you are using several forms of social media and you're trying to update them every single day, then you're going to find that it is going to very quickly get very time consuming. And goodness only knows, we've all got enough going on in our lives to not want something to be that time consuming. Now, there are ways of making that a little bit quicker for you, and I will mention some of those a bit later on. Okay, so in a nutshell, apologies, frog in my throat. In a nutshell, the different forms of social media. They are all very much used for different purposes, and they are used in different ways. Now, apologies. I must apologise, everybody. Unfortunately, I've got a lousy sinus infection at the moment and it's causing me to cough a little bit. So I'm very sorry about that. So taking each one in order. So Twitter's probably the biggest social media site and the one that's most used. But the thing to remember about Twitter is it is very much a conversation. It's never been meant to be used for a monologue. It's very much about those conversations that you have with other people. Next to that, I would personally say Instagram. Instagram is naturally very visual, image sharing, very much about hashtags, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a bit later on. Facebook. I would expect most of us have got a Facebook account. It would not be my first choice for promotion, I have to say. It does tend to be more popular, as you can see, I've put that very politely, with more mature users, shall we say. It's certainly not somewhere where most young people will do their networking or their socializing. LinkedIn, very professional, bit more formal. So you'll be putting different things on LinkedIn, perhaps, that you'll be putting on Twitter or Instagram. TikTok. Now, I know how phenomenally popular TikTok is. Amanda, just to mention, you've got a few people entered the waiting room if you want to be letting them in. So TikTok is very short videos, extremely popular with younger people, very much popular with younger people. To be fair, with a fair amount of older people as well, but it's not something to go into unless you're confident with video. TikTok. Clubhouse. Now, this is a very new one. It's a new app, and it's about listening in and also instigating audio conversations. And it's the first time that I've seen a social media app doing that. And it's quite an interesting one. At the moment, for Clubhouse, you need an invite in order to join Clubhouse, but I think it's going to be quite big. It's got the capacity to be a very popular app. Then you have Pinterest, which is all about content sharing and very collaborative. And of course, YouTube, which is huge audience. Very good for content creation and also for pointing people to from other forms of social media. Now, by no means is that every means of social media that I've covered there. It's not an exhaustive list, but those are just the ones that are, in my opinion, most popular and the ones that I'm asked about the most. So when you're thinking about the posts that you put on social media, the thing that you need to remember across all of your platforms is that you tailor your content to the platform. Don't blanket post, because posts that you're putting on Twitter will not necessarily be the same as posts that you're putting on Instagram or on Facebook or anywhere else, because all of the platforms have got different rules and different ways to use them. Definitely show your human side. I follow a lot of people on Twitter and other forms of social media. I very quickly stop following anybody that is just putting out promotional tweet after promotional tweet after promotional tweet, because it's not interesting for people. People want to see the human side. They want to see what the person behind the account is like. Be aware of any etiquette rules for the platform. And there are lots of hidden etiquette rules on all of the platforms, and you need to have a good grounding in them if you don't want to come a cropper on social media. If you do run across several channels, however, make sure your profile is consistent and easily recognizable, because if you've got people going to different accounts on different forms of social media, they want to be able to easily recognize you and to follow you on different ones. Don't post too much, but don't post too little. Now that sounds really difficult to do, doesn't it? But what you don't want to do is flood people's feeds so that when they go on to an account, all they're going to see is your content, because that soon becomes extremely wearing. On the other hand, if you're only posting once a month, then people are going to overlook you because you're not sharing current content, and they're soon going to lose interest in anything you do put out there. So coming back to look at the social media platforms one by one. Let me just come up to the top here. And I'm just going to I'll this window to the left of my screen and then bring my presentation to the other side of the screen. There we go. Oh, it's only going to have it full screen. Apologies. Right. Okay. I'm just going to leave it smaller on the screen because I do want to be able to have Twitter open in the same screen. So with Twitter, it is very much a conversational tool. So if somebody has spoken to you on Twitter, so they've sent a tweet to you, it is very bad form not to answer. It's kind of like being in a party and somebody comes up to speak to you and they're talking at this side of your face and you turn your face away and you ignore them. It is extremely rude. So you do need to keep an eye on if people are talking to you so that you can respond in due kind. Usually with Twitter, you're only using one hashtag. If you are very new to social media and you're not sure what hashtag is, all that a hashtag is used for is to keep content on a particular subject all together. So it's a way of almost creating a collection of information so that you can see it all at the same time. With Twitter, you're usually only using perhaps one hashtag, maybe even two, but certainly no more than that. The other thing is keep an eye on trending hashtags and special event days. For example, for myself, next week's World Book Day, so I'll be doing lots on World Book Day and Mental Health Day, things like that that come up. I will always be tailoring my tweets so that they go in with that as well, because you do want to be seen to be taking notice of current special days, but conversely, don't join in with a trending hashtag or a special event day if it has no relevance whatsoever with what you are usually tweeting about. You can usually find a way to fit it in, but you really don't want any tweets going out that are completely disparate and are nothing to do with the trending hashtags that you're using. Twitter tends to be more light-hearted than any other form of social media, and light-hearted posts go down very, very well. I would say, especially at the moment, we all need a smile at the moment, and anything that you can do to make people smile in your followers, then it's got to be a good thing. Make sure that your tweets have maximum exposure. For example, when you are tweeting about somebody else or about another company, make sure the @ sign isn't right at the beginning of your tweet, because if it is, only people that are following both yourself and the person you are referencing will see that tweet. An easy way to get around that is to start the tweet with something else, with a word, or even putting a full stop at the start of the tweet and then putting the @ sign and the person's Twitter name, because that way everybody will be able to see that tweet that you've put out there, and it won't be limited just to people that are watching both of you, following both of your tweets. Follow other people. That's something else. Don't wait for people to follow you. Definitely, go on and find people to follow, retweet them, comment to them, start conversations. It is all about interaction with Twitter. It's not somewhere where you can just content project without getting involved. You do need to be involved in Twitter, very much so. And the last thing that I didn't actually put on there, but I thought about afterwards, is make good use of the list function on Twitter. Those of you that are regular users of Twitter, you may already know about the lists, but just in case you don't, on Twitter, you can make up your own lists and you can add people to your list. So that means for me, for example, I've got a list of authors, etc. And I've put all of these authors on my authors list. But what it means for me is I don't have to follow them all the time. So I don't need to see their tweets every time I go into Twitter, but I can occasionally just go to my list and see, oh, what are people in the business saying? What are authors saying at the moment? And then I can decide when I want to dip into that list, and I'm not getting lots and lots of tweets coming down my tweet stream all the time that I'm not necessarily interested in. When you do make up your lists, you can make them private or you can make them public. Most of mine are public because I see it as an extension of my business, because lots of people do follow my lists. So I make most of mine public, but it makes your life on Twitter so much easier. Definitely so much easier. The other thing I would definitely advise you to do is start using something like TweetDeck. TweetDeck is a Twitter client, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to see several columns at the same time. So you can see several columns next to each other. So it saves you jumping around in different screens. But the most important thing that I love about TweetDeck is it allows you to post-date tweets. So I don't necessarily have to be going on every single day. If I know I've got a particularly busy week, I'll just load up some tweets at the beginning of the week, and then I will post them each day, post-date them so they go on each day, and then I'll just check at the end of the day to see if anybody has responded to them, because naturally if they have responded to them, I want to be able to chat back to them. So something like TweetDeck can make your life a lot simpler, and it can make sure that you are putting enough content out there that you are keeping people's interest. Okay, so moving on. This is a perfect example of that. We will be sending you out the presentation afterwards if you want to, or of course you can come back and have a look at the video. But this is a tweet that was recently put out by Weetabix, who were talking about the idea of having Heinz beans on Weetabix for breakfast, the thought of which makes me shudder. It really does. But it took fire, and this went absolutely viral. You had other companies commenting on it. As you can see, you've got Lidl and KFC and Nando's and goodness only knows who else, even the NHS commenting on it, saying that that tweet should come with a health warning. You had huge accounts like Google commenting and saying, look at what you've done. Sainsbury's commenting on it. So many companies jumped in and were commenting on this one tweet that it gave them so much publicity. It was even shown on several television programs. It was shown on Good Morning Britain. And I must admit, my favourite of all tweets back to it was one that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen from an account that Ultravox has that says this means nothing to us. Now, for those of you that are much younger than me, it probably won't mean anything to you either. But I do hope those who are of a similar age have had a smile at that one. And it just shows you how a simple tweet can take off and go viral in a very short space of time. Okay, so moving on from Twitter, LinkedIn. Now, I fully admit I don't use LinkedIn as well as I perhaps could be doing. And it's one of those ones where I don't go back to it that much, even though, as you can see, I've got 500 plus connections on LinkedIn, and I have linked with many, many different people. There are some things you should be doing on LinkedIn though. Your photo, you may have noticed my bio photo is the same across all of my social media, so that it's always me, if you like. What lots of people don't do on LinkedIn is they don't put a picture up here, which is on your background image. And that's a great shame, because I think that's another area where you could be doing a bit of advertising, and it's not very well used. Make sure if you're using LinkedIn that you do join groups and you do comment. There are numerous groups on LinkedIn that you can join, with some fantastic connections to be made, but you've got to be committed to it. You've got to be doing it. You've got to be commenting. You've got to be starting conversations. You can also repost others on LinkedIn, and you can, you should be posting to your stream quite regularly. I do not put the same things on LinkedIn, however, that I put on Twitter. Twitter is kind of very much me as a whole person, I'd say, because Twitter, yes, I do put professional things on Twitter, but it's also my playful side as well. So I tend to get involved in silly things like, you know, what's your favorite sandwich? Well, that sort of thing. Okay, it seems really silly, but I get involved with the personal side of me on Twitter more so than I do on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very much about my professional side, and I don't tend to show that much of my personality on LinkedIn because it's very much more about making those professional connections. Encourage people to recommend you and recommend others, because if you're writing recommendations for other people, then they're more likely to want to come back and do the same for you. So definitely get into your recommendations, get those sorted, and make sure your profile's fully completed. Whether it's a company or whether it's yourself as your personal one, you want as much information on there as possible. You want to give your best impression of your company or of yourself. I think the thing that people don't always realize is that your LinkedIn profile, your Twitter profile, they are your shop window. And that's where you want to put the things that put you in the best light and that are going to interest people and encourage them to want to interact with you. So, you know, you don't want to be putting boring things, if you like, in there. You want to be putting the things that are exciting and fantastic and that you feel you've made a real impact with, shall we say. Okay, Instagram. Well, I could actually talk for the whole time about Instagram as well as Twitter, because it is such a massive site and there are so many things you can do on it. I would say definitely make full use of the My Story feature. Many people don't. My Story on Instagram allows you to add a post to it that will only last for 24 hours. And people are fascinated by the My Story. They do like looking at that because you can put a different thing each day. So it makes your content always differing. As you can see, mine is a mix of the professional and the personal. Yes, that is one of my cats there, but there's lots of books on here as well, because that's part of my job, is looking at children's books. So you'll find there's quite a lot of that on there. Video content on Instagram is something you shouldn't overlook, because people will always stop for longer on a video than they will just on a picture. And I've quite good with other accounts that I use on putting several videos on, because they always get lots of interest and catch people's eye. If you're looking to jazz your photos up a little bit and make them look a bit more interesting, there are many apps that will allow you to do that. I tend to use an app called Wordle, which allows me to put moving elements onto my photos, and it gives me lots of different options so that I can make them look a little bit better. And of course, I can't find one at the moment, but there are probably on the accounts that I do for other people, I use them a bit more. The effects range from allowing you to show it's snowing on a picture, to putting lights on a picture, or making the cat, as you can see, my cat there, moving, all sorts of different things. And Wordle is incredibly easy to use, and probably one of my favorite apps. When you're using hashtags on Instagram, it's the opposite to Twitter, because Twitter, you're only going to be using 1 or 2. Instagram, you want to use as many hashtags as possible. Even up to about 20 hashtags is not unusual on Instagram. However, a little tip, do not put your hashtags in the main body of your post, because that is off-putting to somebody. If they click on your post and it's got 20 hashtags down here and they can see all of those hashtags, they tend to be a bit put off. What I would typically do is I'll use one hashtag in the main body of the post, and then any other hashtags I want to use, I will put in as a comment, because then they're more unobtrusive and people are not so much getting all of your hashtags in their face at the same time. When it comes to hashtags, people tend to advise you often to use the hashtags that have been most frequently used. And I can see the reasoning behind that, because if it's a very hot popular hashtag, then yes, that's great. You know, you perhaps want to use that on your pictures. However, if it is that popular a hashtag, your pictures can get lost within all of those posts that are using that hashtag. So do try and make sure that you use a mixture. Do use the most frequent ones that are used. Yes, that's wonderful. But also try and find some lesser used hashtags, because your photos are not going to get lost so much. If it's a hashtag that's not been used that frequently, the people that are really interested in it are more likely to see your picture than if you're going on a hashtag that's been used by thousands and thousands of people. You can follow hashtags on Instagram, and that's quite a good thing to do, because then if you follow a particular hashtag, you'll see any posts with that hashtag coming up in your stream. And then in the same way as you can retweet or repost things on other forms of social media, you can also do that on Instagram by using an app. I use Repost app, and that does give credit to the original poster, but then I can repost their posts on my own stream, and that's always a great compliment. And the other thing to think about is, if you need to use links, if you're trying to put a link in a post on Instagram and it's just an ordinary Instagram account, if you put a link in any post, it's not a clickable link. The only clickable link that you'll get on a normal account on Instagram is the one in your bio, as this one here in my bio. But by using Linktree or another service like that, here we go, I've got this is my Linktree account, and it's got all of the links that I want it to have through one URL. So that way, if you were putting a particular promotion on or a competition and you wanted to put a link to the competition entry form, for example, you could put that onto your Linktree page, and then you can just put in the post link in bio. And at least that makes it a little bit easier for people to find the other links that you want them to go to. Okay, so coming back to play, because I don't particularly need to use my screen for the others. Okay, TikTok. Yeah. As I've put there, feel the fear and do it anyway. Being a lady of a certain age, I'll admit to over 40, TikTok has never been something that I really thought I could do. However, I have to say it is the best fun. I really do quite enjoy it now. When you're having a go with TikTok, if you do decide you're going to use it, definitely play with it quite a lot first, because there are lots of effects and filters you can use. So you want to have a look at those and see how you can use them to best effect. Again, TikTok does use hashtags, not quite as many as Instagram, but you do use hashtags on TikTok. And make sure you're cross-posting your TikTok videos to other platforms so that you can use them in different places. Collaborating with others to produce joint posts, very popular. Whether it's miming to a song or whether it's interviewing each other, those sort of things go down really, really well on TikTok. There is a discover tag on TikTok and you will see trending sounds and hashtags. Now, the trending sounds is usually popular music that have become really big on TikTok and that lots of people have used for their videos. Personally, I'm not that good at miming to videos, but if you can get in on those trending hashtags and those trending sounds, you will get a lot more exposure. And as I say at the bottom, if Dame Judi Dench can do it, so can we. I've got to say her TikTok videos with her grandson are absolutely phenomenal. And if she wasn't already one of my idols, she would certainly be now because they are just amazing. YouTube. According to forecast, number of online viewers is going to amount to 1.86 billion in 2021. That is just a phenomenal amount of people. And I can't even get my head around how many people that is. When you are using YouTube, and if you are using YouTube, make sure you have a channel, have your own channel. Anybody can have their own channel on YouTube. It's easier if you've got a Gmail account because you will already have a channel made up if you have a Gmail account, but you can open up a channel on YouTube with any email. It doesn't really matter which one. When you are putting videos up, do remember that they don't have to be public. You can put your videos up so that they're only found via a URL, or you can put them up as private. Now, having them only found as URL is useful for using other different bits of social media, because if you put your post up onto the on YouTube, you put your video on YouTube, you could then link to it from Twitter or Instagram or anywhere else just by using the URL, but it wouldn't be seen publicly by anybody that went just straight away to your YouTube channel. You can turn off commenting as well if you want to on a YouTube video, and that's something that personally I would definitely advise, because the commenting function is one of the bugbears of using YouTube, because if you leave it open, you can imagine the comments you get are not always what you want to be public. Okay, I'm really sorry. I've just managed to click and I didn't want to. Sorry, yeah. Put some thought into your design of your channel page, because again, it's your shop front. If people are going to click on your channel, then you want them to be able to see something about your company or about what you're putting out there. And you want to have it looking as though it's a finished professional page. Follow other channels. That's another thing, you know, because so much content going on YouTube every single day. If I were looking for new content that concerns my my own job or my own industry, then I could be there all day looking at different things and going from one page to the other. So I decided that I have followed a select amount of other channels. And then every time I log into YouTube, what it then does is it presents me with any new content that any of my channels have put up on that day. So I don't have to go searching for content. It's going to be presented to me. Okay. So Facebook. Facebook used to be the biggest of them all, used to be the one platform that everybody used. Sadly, not so much now. It tends to be slightly more mature people that use Facebook. and it's used a lot more for recreational purposes, I think. Younger people won't be seen dead on Facebook. It's kind of, that's the place where your mum and dad are. And they tend to, younger people migrate to other places on the internet, and they wouldn't be seen dead on a Facebook page. Having said that, if you are going to use Facebook, same rules as any other. You need to be interacting more. Definitely need to be interacting with people that comment and that like your posts. If you have people that like your posts and they have not yet liked your page, you can always invite them to like your page, and that's a good way to get more followers. Look at the possibility of running Facebook live events. They're a little bit scary, the thought of running a live event, I've got to say. I've done a few now, and they've been okay. People do quite like the spontaneity that's involved with a Facebook live event, because you can just do an impromptu one when you're feeling like it, or you can set one up to be at a certain time, but they are quite popular. So Pinterest and Clubhouse, don't need to say an awful lot about those. Pinterest is like having a virtual notice board, and it's more about content sharing. So it's great for putting pictures up of products, for example, or ideas or resources. And Clubhouse, as I say, very, very new, very, very new. And at the moment it's invite only, but it's definitely one to watch, because I think it's got the potential to be really big. Clubhouse. It's billed as an app for businesses as well. So it's not so much about the leisure, it's more about a business app. Then what about creating your content? Well, you know, there are many ways of creating your content, and you might just want to be typing things straight into the text box, and you want to do that. That's absolutely fine. But something I've often struggled with in the past was making sure that my posts were the right dimensions for each form of social media. Because if you are using an image on several different forms of social media, it's got to be a different size and a different shape for each form of social media that you're using. What I discovered a while ago, and what I absolutely love, is a site called Canva. Now, Canva, you can have a free account on it. It is a free site to use, but I cannot recommend enough having a paid account on Canva. There's a Canva Pro account which costs you about £100 a year, but I've had so much use out of it that it paid for itself very, very quickly. Beauty of using Canva. If I come in to create a design, and okay, so for example, I want to create an Instagram post, I can come into there and I've got loads and loads of templates on here. They're all the right size, and I can just adjust them to look how I want them to. You've got a really good range of pictures on here. Here we go. I'm going to say I'm using that one. Then if you come into the images, you can see where I got my image for this presentation. You've got a huge bank of images that you can use royalty free. You can add in text. You can even add in audio or video to your creations. You can add animations on it as well. And there is a new function on here now that I desperately want to play with, in that you can create comics on here. They would be extremely visually eye-catching. So if we come into the comic strip, here we go. There you go. You've got various different types of comic strips that you can then adjust to put your own wording on. You can mix and match the images on there, so you can put different characters from different comics into different ones. And then you can download them to your own computer or laptop very, very easily and very, very quickly. And all of these things are going to make your posts look a lot more professional and a lot more engaging, definitely. I love the fact that it does give you those set sizes for things, because I don't even have to think about it. And if I've then created a Instagram post, for example, and I do want to use a similar post in other places, I can come up to the top when I've finished it, and it will allow me to then resize it. And then I can resize my post so that it's the right size for every form of social media that I'm using. You can also use it to make your headers for social media. So if you're looking at designing something for the top of your Twitter page, or indeed for a website, if you're looking at a website header, you've got all of those templates provided for you in here. Believe me, I don't get paid any commission for telling you about Canva, but it's the one site that I have used to such great effect over the past year that I just wouldn't be without it. It saves me so much time and an awful lot of work. Okay, well, I think that's just about everything I was going to cover for now, but we do have some time for questions now. It's entirely up to you. You could either put your questions into the chat box, or do feel free to put on your webcam and your microphone if you want to ask them in person, so to speak.
Okay, that was fantastic. Thank you, Bev. I learned a lot in that session. That was great. Well, just while people think about perhaps questions they have, I've got one here from Marco, and he's asking about the difference with Facebook and LinkedIn, because, you know, Facebook more friends and family, LinkedIn is more about professional and job search. And he tries to have different and separate contacts and profile pictures. Should I be deleting or suspending my Facebook, was his question. So what would you say to that?
I wouldn't say that you need to delete or suspend your Facebook, no, but certainly from a business point of view, LinkedIn is the one to go with, without a doubt. Facebook is very much seen now as recreational. It's the place where people keep up to date with their friends and their family, and perhaps it's their more personal side, if you like. Whereas LinkedIn is very much a professional side, yes. So if it was a choice between the two, business-wise, I'd definitely go for LinkedIn, without a doubt.
I think the key thing we hear more and more about is around recruiters looking at what we might be posting on Facebook, and therefore what we might be like as characters. So I guess the thing, Marco, is to make sure that you've edited maybe anything you put on Facebook, or you make sure only certain people can see it.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. Not so much that you've edited what you're putting, because we all need space to be ourselves, if you like, but keep an eye on your permissions. Yes, definitely, because you know, you only want your Facebook posts to be seen by people that you are friends with or that you have got a relationship with. So make sure you keep an eye on your permissions. And the other thing that Facebook is very bad at is they update the app and the site regularly, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong, but it often changes your permissions. So
Right,
you
you
do
haven't
have to
realised.
you've got to keep a close eye on it, because sometimes you think you're sewn up as tight as anything, and then they do an update and suddenly everybody can see your stuff, and that's something to be very aware of, because you don't want that happening.
In that case, maybe a monthly health check then on the Facebook
Good
page
idea.
would
Yes,
be a good thing
very
to get
good
into the
idea.
habit of doing. That's fantastic. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody else in the audience? Either put something in chat, or please unmute yourself and ask your questions directly.
That's stunned them all into silence. Look at that.
Something about the Facebook was quite interesting. Facebook, it was quite interesting to see that it's actually out of fashion now. I thought it was still popular.
Well, it's not that it's unpopular. It is still popular, but it tends to be people of a certain age. Let me put it that way. Obviously, I do a lot of work with teens and young people, and they wouldn't be seen dead on Facebook. They really wouldn't, because Facebook is seen as the place that your aunts and uncles and your mum and dad are, you know. So and I am a lady of a certain age, so yes, I do use Facebook quite a lot. And I think the thing is, it's just the way it's used has changed, you know, because when I first started using Facebook, which was many years ago, it was very much my professional side. I used it for my work and that sort of thing. But as time's gone on, I've used it less and less for that. And now it is so much more relaxed. And it's just like, I think of Facebook as like being in someone's lounge. You know, you're sitting in that relaxed place. It's they're in a sanctum, if you like, and that's where you can be yourself and have a chat and that sort of thing. But it's not somewhere I'd ever think of getting business from.
So forgive me that I've missed the first part of your presentation. So what is the replacement of Facebook for young people?
Young people, without a doubt, TikTok, without a doubt. TikTok is the be all and end all at the moment. It's extremely popular.
Isn't there
And
controversy regarding TikTok as well at the moment?
there is controversy regarding TikTok, but then, to be fair, there's controversy regarding every single bit of social media. Every time a new social media site comes up, there is always controversy about it, and there's always lots of discussion about it not being safe, etc., etc. But in a way, that's just like the difference between many, many years ago, we only had radio. Okay. When television first came out, it was going to corrupt the youth of Great Britain, and everybody was going to be completely obsessed with television, and radio was going to die. Well, that didn't happen, did it? You know, are there dangers with using TikTok? There are dangers with using any form of social media. It is incumbent on the user to make sure they're safe, not on the company.
With regards to LinkedIn, I do I'm a bit concerned about LinkedIn, because obviously it's like, how much do I provide? I mean, I want to provide the right amount of information so recruiters find me. But again, I don't want to announce my CV to the whole world where people can sort of, you know, identity fraud and all that. So I don't know what the balance is in terms of trying to get a profile where you know, that's why I don't list all my jobs, the companies, and you know, I've sort of hidden some of the actual names of the companies. I don't want someone to impersonate me. So what's your take on security, and also trying to find the right balance of information to get for the recruiters?
I think LinkedIn is one of the safest sites, actually. LinkedIn are very, very aware of identity fraud, and it's a very safe site to use. Yes, I can see your point about having all of your information out there, but that's not your personal information. That's your CV. That's not your bank account details. That's not your date of birth. It's not the things that people are going to be able to use to impersonate you. It's more just your work side. And I have to say, I have never been concerned about that. No. I have always had my full CV on LinkedIn, and it's never been an issue because they are so security conscious.
What's your take on for a job hunter to purchase the premium package for LinkedIn? What's your take on that, or not? Or
that one I can't really comment on, because I've never needed to use it, so I haven't bought into it. Have I got business from LinkedIn? Yes, I have. I've had more business come my way through LinkedIn than any other site, definitely. But I've never paid for the premium version. So I think you'd have to look into that a lot more personally and see which aspects of it are going to be useful for you. I've never seen the need. I've never seen the need to go into to pay for that form of social media.
I think I'd just add then, if it's from a job hunting point of view, so it's probably worth, they give you a 1 month free trial, and you take that and see what you think. And then if you want to try it for 1 month, you can always turn off the direct debit by month 2. So I would say put your toe in the water and see, but certainly you do get a lot of jobs advertised on there, which are posted more directly rather than through an agency. So you might find that useful, but you don't have to commit for a long period of time. So maybe try it out and see what you think.
No,
I've used LinkedIn Premium, and I wouldn't advise it either to a business or an individual, to be honest.
Right.
Perhaps slightly different if you're actually a recruiter, but it doesn't particularly, it offers you some great stuff around searching and keeping CRM kind of customer data and stuff like that. But for an individual, not worth it. What I would say is find your ideal employer and connect with them. Make sure your LinkedIn CV matches your CV that you're giving out. So as Bev just said, I find LinkedIn incredibly safe. I've got no concerns about my personal sort of job history being on there, but making sure that matches, because recruiters will check that your LinkedIn matches your actual CV, and if there's any discrepancies between the two, then that could raise questions. But it's really about just getting connections, putting out your personal brand and connecting with people, because actually what's happened during the pandemic is a lot of companies have stopped their premium LinkedIn subscriptions, which means that they are now building connections and posting job adverts in their feeds rather than using the LinkedIn job site part of it to be able to do it. It does mean that LinkedIn is trying to monetize in other ways, and now trying to do a lot more advertising on there. But it's absolutely worth connecting with, finding the people that you want to work for and connecting with them, and that's how you see your job adverts appearing on LinkedIn.
That's interesting, actually, because a contact of mine did just that. They posted a job in their feed, and actually I've shared it to our group CIPD LinkedIn page. Okay. So if you haven't applied to join it, because it's for members only, do please do so, because whenever I see job adverts, I will pass them on to the community. And we also talk about our forthcoming events on that page, and we also write articles and put them on there. So if you haven't joined us on LinkedIn, do please do so. Okay, I think we've probably got time for one more question.
So if I can just make one more comment on
yes,
LinkedIn,
of course.
Sorry, and Jennifer, you'll probably agree with this. The other thing to make sure with LinkedIn is that you've fully completed your skills bit on there, because so many people forget to do that. You know, and I know myself, was somebody very close to me when they first started a LinkedIn said, well, I don't know what skills I've got, you know, I don't know what I've got. And we sat there and went through, and I went, well, you do this and you do this and you do this and you do this, and you really do need to make sure that you've fully gone into all of the skills that you have that you quite possibly don't even realize. And it's quite a good idea to do that with somebody else that knows you and knows your working self, because they'll come up with skills that you didn't even realize you had yourself. And that can be quite a good thing to do.
That's great. Thank you very much. Right. One last question from anybody.
Could I just ask very quickly about Instagram? Bev, you mentioned when you spoke about Twitter that, you know, it's good etiquette to respond to somebody if they mention you in a tweet. Yeah. Is there the same kind of etiquette with Instagram? Should you follow if someone follows you, or comment back if somebody no?
There's no need to follow someone back if they follow you. And indeed, I'm very choosy as to who I follow back, because otherwise your stream just gets full of loads of things, and you miss lots of stuff. So no, there is no onus on you to follow someone back if they've started following you. However, if someone has commented on a post I've put on, I will always reply. Even if they've just put, you know, lovely cat, whatever they've put, I will always reply to that, because again, that's keeping the conversation going and it's building relationships. But certainly don't ever feel that you have to follow someone just because they follow you, because that way lies madness, believe me. Even on Twitter, on Twitter, you only saw my account briefly, but I think I've got 4,000 odd people following me. I do not follow 4,000 people. I follow about 1,000 people, and that's plenty. Believe me, that's plenty. You know, so I definitely wouldn't say there's any onus on you to go back and follow someone just because they followed you. It's just a case of replying to people. I do think what is a nice idea on Instagram, as I say, with the your story, the Instagram story, it's something that lots of people don't use that well, but you can repost somebody else's post to your story. And I always
Right.
think that's a really nice idea, you know, because it's almost like a hat tip to their content. You're saying, oh, that's really good content, I'm going to reshare it to my story, and then it's only going on for a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
That's
thank
great.
you.
Thank you very much indeed, Bev. That was a fantastic session. I really enjoyed it, and particularly useful to find out about Canva. Never heard of that before, and that sounds like a fantastic tool. So thank you very much indeed. Okay, before we end, then I'm just going to quickly share my screen and take us. So I wanted just to point out before you all go, you will receive a recording of this session that you've attended. So that's fantastic, and it will be available to you for 6 weeks. Do think to contact us or connect with us on the LinkedIn page, be part of that LinkedIn discussion group. If there's anything you want to get in touch with to the group around things you'd like to suggest for us, to cover in other webinars, it's amanda.whiteford@cipdbranch.co.uk if you want to get in touch with me that way. I also wanted to point out before we go, fantastic resources that the CIPD have on their website, which are available to members. So supporting you in your career, you can see here on this screen, there's a lot of great material here. Do feel free to look at that, especially if you're thinking about finding a new role, or you've unfortunately been made redundant recently because of the pandemic. Lots of great stuff on here. There are also helplines that are free for us to use around employment law, whistleblowing, personal legal helpline, which is a new one and covers a lot of different issues. That looked really good, and well-being. So some fantastic resources there. And then finally, more well-being content can be found on here around a helpline, the legal again, financial support and wellbeing content. So lots of really great resources there on the CIPD website. So I think that just leaves me to say thank you so much for sharing your time with us. So thank you so much, Bev, for a really fantastic session, really, really informative. Bev will share her contact details when the recording goes out. So if you do want to enter into a conversation with Bev, I'm sure that will be fine. But otherwise, it just leaves me to say thank you, everybody. Have a great evening, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, which is actually tomorrow, and then there will be some more being planned for April onwards. So we look forward to seeing you then. Okay, goodbye everybody, and take care.